Hey, it's Riley Bowman, Director of Training with ConcealedCarry.com. Today I want to talk to you about bore axis height. Is this true? Is there something to this? Or is it a bunch of malarkey? Stay tuned, we're going to show you what we think. So, for a long time I've heard this talk about bore axis height, and I'll admit I've been a believer of the importance of a low bore axis height before. It's certainly something that's brought up a lot of times when we're talking about things like Glocks compared to something like SIGs. Now, if we are looking at just straight up measurements, it's true. There's quite a difference between if we're measuring from where the beaver tail, the point of that, or where the bottom edge of that hits the webbing of the hand, to where the center line of the bore is. Yeah, there's a good 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch difference at least between the 320 here and a Glock 19. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna actually shoot these and compare them side by side and see what the results actually say. That's the best way to look at this, is what does the data tell us? So we're gonna shoot a series of, I don't know, drills. They're gonna be 5-shot strings. We're gonna do it 4 times for each gun. Downrange at 7 yards, I've got 2 targets, one for the 320, one for the Glock 19. The 320 will be on the left, the Glock 19 on the right. It's an 8-inch circle target, so similar to the hit zone, you know, the down 0 point zone in an IDPA target, which is commonly used with, say, like a bill drill. So we decided to do something kind of like a bill drill, again shooting 5 shots, 5-shot strings. We're going to be looking at both time and accuracy. My goal will actually be to attempt to shoot these about at the same speed. That should be pretty manageable. And then we'll also look at hits and see if there's a big difference in terms of the hits on the targets. And then we're also going to make sure that we stagger these. I'm not going to just shoot all the 320 rounds and then go and shoot all the Glock ones. We're going to go P320 and Glock 19, or vice versa, back and forth until we shoot all 20 rounds. Now, again, if we're just looking at these 2 guns compared side by side, and if we put the top of the slide, which is pretty close to lining up the bore of the guns, then what we'll see is there's quite a big difference between, again, where the height of the bore is, that center line of the bore, compared to where the beaver tail on the grip of the gun is. And of course, that is your fulcrum point where the gun's trying to rotate over the hand. As that gun fires, the recoil energy begins traveling. You actually don't realize the full amount of that recoil energy until that slide hits its most rearward position. It's gonna hit that stop on the way back. The gun begins to rotate and recoil, and then of course the slide goes forward, the gun begins to return back to where it fired from as well. So if we're just looking at the measurements, we would think intuitively, and probably not necessarily incorrectly, that the Glock 19 probably should shoot flatter and faster and more accurately than the P320. But I'm not so convinced. I don't think it's quite that simple. I think that actually a gun, in terms of how predictable it is in returning back to where the shot was initially fired from, I think that's a bigger factor. And whether we have a high bore axis or a low one, whether it's shooting really flat or shooting with a lot of movement, that movement occurs very quickly. Certainly faster than what we can process mentally and pick up the sights and take the next shot. So my feeling is what's more important is how the gun returns to target, and that can actually be dependent on a variety of factors. Now that's my prediction, that's what I think, but we're gonna let the data tell us what the true story here is. So again, we're gonna look at time, and we're gonna look at number of hits we get in those 8-inch circle targets downrange. Now let me describe how this is gonna go. I'll pick up a gun, I'm going to charge it, load it, and we're going to start on target. We'll be using a Range Tech BT shot timer. Of course, it's going to give me my readout on my phone over here, and so a random delay start, the shot timer will beep. I will begin on target, okay, because we're trying to remove as many variables as possible. There's no draw here, there's no presentation from a high compressed ready or anything like that. Just straight up on target, beep, begin firing. Firing 5 rounds, put the gun down, pick up the other gun, repeat. And until we've gone through 20 rounds through each gun, 4 sets of 5 shots. And then we'll look at the times, we'll look at the hits, and we'll see what the data tells us. So let's get started. Get our ear protection on. Shot timer ready to roll. Okay. So let's see here. Let's pick one of these randomly. Whichever one we start with randomly, that's the gun we'll begin with. So how are we going to do this? Well, I will drop this loose round in between these 2 guns, and the one that it points to most closely will be the one we start with, Glock 19. All right, Glock 19 it is. Put that one back in. So let's begin with the Glock 19. Oh, one final word. Again, trying to remove as many variables as possible. These are about as closely sized to each other as they could be. Similar barrel lengths, similar grip lengths. Also, they have the exact same sights on them. They're both XS sights, F8 night sights. So same sight picture, I'm gonna see the same thing. So as much as possible, we're trying to remove all those variables. So here we go, Glock 19, 7 yards. We're gonna shoot the target on the right with the Glock. Random start on the shot timer, here we go. Okay, kind of a little bit of a hang up there, my trigger. And the time on that was 1.37. So now we'll go ahead and move over to the 320. Shooting the left target. And here we go. And the time on this one is a 1:18, so it's actually faster. I'll just tell you right now, so far I'm 5 for 5 on the 320 and 4 out of 5 on the Glock 19. Back to the Glock. So we missed 1 round on the Glock so far. Okay, and we're out. All right. Well, lest anyone accuse me of being more familiar with a different weapon system, I would say to date I still have by a couple of thousand, maybe quite a bit. I've got thousands of rounds more through a Glock 19 or a Glock platform than I do a 320. Although I'm catching up quick on this because I have been shooting these a little bit more recently. That time, by the way, was a 1:22. So a little bit more on par with the 320's first run. Here's the 320's second run. Okay, we now have 1 miss with the actually 2 misses with the 320. I think I drifted off a little to the right with my sights. I was going faster, 1:11 on that run. Okay, over to the Glock. Run 3. Okay, and back to the 320 for its third run. Now that was actually the fastest run out of any of the guns so far. That was a .99. So that looked pretty good. I think I did have 1 miss in that string of fire. Now back to the 320. Those were all hits. And that was done in a 1.04. Okay, here we go, Glock 19, final run. Okay, so we are out there. Okay, we've got, actually, sorry, I forgot to tell you that last Glock 19 run was a 1:03. So right now we're probably averaging around about a second with, you know, these runs. Final 320 run, here we go. And there it is. And that was, again, just over a second, 1.04. So I'm gonna go ahead and tally up the total times right now. All right, we've totaled up the time, total time, so those 4 strings of fire, The Glock 19 total time was 4.61 seconds. Total time on the P320 was 4.37 seconds. So, you know, we're a good third of a second faster on the P320. Let's go check out hits. All right, Glock 19. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 misses. So we are down 6. P320. That breaks the line. That breaks the line. 1, 2 misses. We're down 2. Interesting. Now these were not by much. These were quite a bit different. And interestingly enough, up to the right, seems that there's more of a diagonal pattern in how the recoil in that Glock 19 is being controlled for me. This was a lot more balanced. And I did have a string of fire was actually kind of over in this region. I just got a little bit off and failed to make that correction during that string of fire. If that had been over, I might have only had 1 miss on this entire run. So there you go. Interestingly enough, again, we had a 4.37 and it was a 4.61 in terms of time. That's seconds. Faster and more precise and accurate in the case of the P320. So what do we take away from this? I realize this is not a perfectly scientific test or even a perfect comparison. I mean, we could even look at some things like the trigger on the Glock 19 is not nearly as nice as the trigger that's on that P320. The travel is shorter on the 320. I think the take up is shorter and the overall weight is a little bit lighter. But, you know, again, we're going to see differences between platforms regardless. The point here is how controllable are these two guns? And what I'm seeing is that it seems the P320, for me, leans a little bit more towards controllable over the Glock 19, especially when we look at, you know, we could say these are not really that bad of a miss, but comparing the misses, we have way wider, you know, much wider misses on the Glock target than we did on the 320. So it's an interesting thing to look at. And again, we were faster here than we were here. So I pose the question to you, is bore axis height everything? I don't think it is. I think how consistently the gun cycles and returns back to target is more important than how flat it theoretically actually shoots. That's interesting. Theoretically, actually. You get what I mean. Hopefully you could see that a little bit in the footage, slowing that down. Now, I haven't seen that yet, but I suspect that there's not much difference between the 320 and the Glock 19 as far as looking at that muzzle rise. Maybe at some point we'll grab a Mantis X10 where we can actually do recoil analysis and do that comparison, and that'll give us some more data as far as the angle of that. That'll be an interesting video for next time. Thanks for watching this video, and I would just encourage you, based on this, don't get so wrapped up around things like bore axis height. It's not everything. Thanks for watching, guys.